My name is Sanjana Pandey, and my thesis is titled MathSpace Reconceiving Institutions for Mental Health. The thesis attempts to investigate the notions created by these institutions. Medicine, treatment, and architecture have always been interlinked, and these spaces of treatment create a construct of the way mental health is perceived, thereby stigmatizing the subject. The research would investigate into the perceptions and notions that these institutions tend to create. The idea is to demonstrate how these state-built historic buildings can update themselves into reimagined facilities, generating newer perceptions of mental health through its architecture. The research began with the historical analysis of the architecture of these spaces, creating a timeline in order to situate and understand the history and development of these institutions over the years, giving an insight into what other kind of perceptions these closed walls had the power to generate in society. It was then looked at through a more specific lens in the context of our country, where the idea of the so-called Pagal Khana was and is still seen as a taboo, generating a certain perception of the mentally distressed. It was key to understand the current and existing state of affairs, structure of administration, and existing policies in our country, thereby looking onto the condition of the state-run mental asylums and the labels that are put upon its inmates. Under the state-run institutions, I looked into four historic asylums situated in the state of Maharashtra, out of which for the case of the thesis, I will be investigating into the Thane Regional Mental Hospital situated in the neighborhood of Dharamveer Nagar. The institution was analyzed through three scales. First, the neighborhood, in order to understand the effects, perceptions, and notions created by its presence. Second, the peripheral edge of the building. And the third is the interior, in order to understand the architecture and the life within the institution. Looking at the first scale of the neighborhood, certain studies, interviews were carried out in order to understand its general effects into the neighborhood. It also looked at how over the years the institution kept cutting itself off from the neighborhood as the urban density around it kept increasing by raising its walls. The second aspect involved studying the edge. These are certain pictures showing the edge conditions. Certain analysis drawings were made in order to understand the changing edge conditions at various intersections of the institutions along its peripheries. These are different wall sections showing across various intersections, showing the wall scales and conditions created at different spaces. The third aspect looked into the architecture, working, and life within the building. These are certain site images showing the wards within which the patients reside. Some more pictures showcasing the current condition and architecture of these buildings. The functioning within was analyzed through the lens of the patient and the spaces and activities one encounters with through the course of the day. In-depth interviews were carried out with the people, asking them about their dreams and aspirations and the life they hope to live within these spaces. It was also essential to look at the health workers within as an important and equal stakeholder. Similar case studies were carried out to understand their life and their routine that they encounter with on a daily basis. Upon various interviews with medical practitioners, a strategy was arrived upon which involved intervening on site through the idea of thresholds and addressing each layer of the institution. Right from the interior to the exterior, the strategy would be to provide spaces for the entire spectrum of mental distresses, thereby making it more inclusive in nature. The institution is no longer seen as a closed-walled hub housing the mad, but as a space which has a larger role to play in the neighborhood or city. This is a diagram showing the various thresholds that would be taken into consideration, namely the interior functioning, the edge, and the building's response to the neighborhood. The line in red indicates the existing institution boundary and the blue determines the plot boundary. The plot is demarcated as an abandoned and dilapidated zone consisting of old unused building remains, which is selected in order to demonstrate a new imagination of what the various layers of the institution could be, right from the interior to its very exterior. These are some pictures of the interiors within, showcasing the existing materiality and nature of space. The strategy is to reuse the black basalt stone from the state-built historic institution to rebuild a new imagination for this very place. Using remnants of the past like the stone blocks found in abundance on site along with lighter materials and volumes. A spatial hierarchy diagram was evolved in order to work with the idea of the transect. To understand the layers of the projects that evolved, namely the central block consisting of the common institution functions acting as a space of shared collective therapy, centrally situated for ease of access for all of the wards. The second, the cluster, consisting of the wards within which people reside. Each ward would get its own private courtyard but also faces a semi-private court binding the cluster together. The third, the edge, looking into how the institution boundary would hold outpatient programs along with the others in order to respond to its surroundings. Programs were evolved in response to a critique of the existing conditions in order to evolve a new lifestyle, architecturally and programmatically. In a scenario where this lifestyle of enforced idleness takes multiple forms, there is a need to look into newer models of care. A model which looks into healing as an everyday routine and activity where control is put back into the hands of the patient. This would look onto a series of self-led recreational programs along with spaces for group and individual occupational as a method of healing. These are the programs, namely for the central block, the ward cluster, and the edge. This is the ground floor plan of the building showcasing the three aspects of the project, namely the central block, the ward cluster, and the edge. This is, I'll be going further detail into each of these ahead. This is a section cutting across the entire transect, showing the different scales of spaces and interactions within. It offers a hierarchy of spaces and different kind of interactions which are allowed within the different scales of spaces. The first part I'll be covering is the central block. It consists of programs for collective, spaces of occupational therapy to be conducted, spaces for health workers and staff, and shared recreational spaces. 450 to 500 thick load-bearing external basalt stone walls support the structure along its length. The binding RCC beams span the basalt stone walls in the shorter direction and give it lateral stability, making it much more structurally stable. Residing the building into a singular volume and opening out the building, allowing various open-air activities to take place. All the building services are concentrated into one arm of the building, allowing for ease of accessibility and workability. The central space of the build form is treated as a double-heighted communal dining and meeting space, with the roof bringing in maximum north light into it. This arm of the building comprises of enclosed spaces for therapy like occupational therapy workshops, screening spaces, etc. The first floor occupies spaces for healthcare workers, behaving as breakout spots for the staff. It also offers deep verandas towards the south facade, giving large shaded spaces used as semi-open workshops. This is the ground floor plan of the central block, showing the service arm, central space, occupational therapy spaces, along with programs for health workers all sitting together. This is the first floor plan of the building, adopting strategies such as creating deep verandas on the south side as a shading device. This is the longitudinal section cutting across the building, a space of collective therapy and production. Through occupational therapy programs such as art, clay, tailoring, painting, and ceramics. When not engaged with these activities, the place simply serves as a place to be there with other people, to come together to eat, cook, be cooked for, make, dance, or play. The central space consists of a folded plate roof, maximizing on north light into the space. Deep verandas are held by RCC radial beams supported on 450 thick stone walls. The common block stands as an artifact in stone, opening itself out to the plaza, which can turn into anything one wants it to be. A wall section showing the construction of the roof plane along with the basalt stone walls. An interior view of the roof showing the kind of spaces created within. A detailed section of the roof showing its construction and fixed window openings created along with the concrete shell. Another wall section showing the roof plane and the volumes created within. The water collected on the roofs is directed into gutters and downspouts, turning it into an architectural element as shown. The second aspect I'll be talking about is the ward cluster. As mentioned previously, the strategy for the wards is to create various levels of spatial hierarchies within. Each ward opens out into a private courtyard and also towards a semi-private court binding the cluster together. This is the ground floor plan of the ward cluster showing the kinds of spaces created within. It is essential to address the spectrum of distresses and illnesses even within the institution. Thus, the cluster consists of 4 ward typologies. Based on interviews with practitioners and case studies, these 4 ward typologies were evolved based on certain set criteria mentioned below, namely the level of assistance required, patient volatility, nature of illness, nature of therapy required, duration of stay, and various other factors were taken into consideration. As part of the cluster strategy, the leftover debris and unusable stone blocks that are left behind are used as infill to create rubble gabion walls at specific locations, acting as south light blocking mechanisms and privacy barriers. This is a detailed drawing showing how these gabion walls will be constructed and assembled on site. Now I'll be talking about each of the ward typologies further in depth, showing its design criteria and nature of spaces. The first typology looks at creating an architecture for the most volatile and patients in need of highest assistance. The alternate courtyards offer spaces for the living and common collective functions. The following are certain criteria that were kept in mind while designing the ward, such as the placement of the residing units versus common functions, ideas of passive surveillance and assistance, visibility, sight lines, locating the ward closest to the center and the core of the institution, keeping in mind ideas of security, providing adequate room facilities such as interior rock wool padding, offering safer spaces, creating windows that such that views can be framed from horizontal patient's perspective that are lying in bed. Various other similar factors were taken into consideration. This is the ground floor plan of the first typology, showing the various programs residing within the alternate courtyards opening out. A cross section cutting across the ward showing the different scales of spaces offered. The north elevation of the ward showing the inward-looking courtyard providing semi-private spaces for the patients and breakout zones for healthcare workers. The north facade also opens up volumes to bring in natural north light into the wardroom units. The second typology looks at patients requiring lesser amount of assistance, needing more emotional therapy and spaces for collective therapy. These are certain icons and a matrix that is built up to show various factors that were taken into consideration during its design, such as passive surveillance, wayfinding, providing indoor therapy spaces, backyard access, etc. The ward is located further away from the center. This is the ground floor plan of the ward showing how the stone wall intersects with the plan. The rooms open out into verandas and private backyards for various activities to take place. A longitudinal section cutting across the building showing the volume scooped out from the stone walls to bring in natural light into the wards and spaces of collective psychotherapy and activities within the ward. An exploded axonometric showing how the roofs bearing stone walls bringing in natural light is taken into consideration. The front elevation of the building showing spaces to engage in ancillary activities like gardening and horticulture, spaces of engagement between patients and workers, and people engaging in collective art workshops. The third typology looks into building a rehabilitative unit, cases which are admitted for rehabilitative work for chronic and long enduring illnesses. The residential units are concentrated along one edge, which opens up the rest of the space for common functions. Apart from ideas of passive surveillance and security, it looks into inculcating rehabilitative features such as a planter window system in the building itself. This design also looks at framing certain views from the interiors of the room, making one always feel connected to the outside. This is the ground floor plan of the building, showing how spaces are accommodated within the stone load-bearing walls. The wall corners are thickened in order to such that they behave as piers to support the first floor above. It opens out towards a free grid which can be used to set up internal exhibits of artworks, objects, installations, etc. prepared by the people as part of occupational therapy. This is an exploded axonometric of the building showing the roof, light brought into the service block, the RCC beam structure, walls extended and spill out spaces opening up. The fourth typology serves as a space of respite for ones dealing with mental distress. The idea being that the psychiatric institution makes itself available for all grades of severities of mental health. The ward consists of the residential and common block and offers open terraces and spaces for group therapy. Being the least volatile and requiring least assistance, this ward is situated further away from the central block and closer to the edge. This is the ground floor plan of the building opening out towards the semi-private courtyard. This is a longitudinal section of the building showing the life of the people within. An exploded axonometric showing the roof, beam structure, 450 thick stone external walls, and extended spill-out spaces of the wall. The south elevation of the building showing smaller punctures created on this facade to block the south light. Larger openings are created on these sides, bringing larger volumes of light. The third aspect and layer of the project is the edge. The strategy was to invert the existing program organization in a way such that the outpatient department is distributed along the peripheries, giving larger access and relationship to the neighborhood. How does one architecturally design these spaces as an intermediate zone between the internal space and outside public? How can one programmatically create an everyday relationship between the inside and the outside, thereby disregarding all misconceptions and stereotypes regarding the mentally ill? The edge accommodates programs such as consultation rooms, street shops, trade areas, and display zones for the objects and artifacts created as a part of occupational therapy and can be put to display and sold, creating an everyday relationship with the outside. The hard linear wall edge, which previously existed, is pulled in certain areas, creating an interactive street and offering relationship to the outside, keeping in mind ideas of security and privacy. This shows the various windows and movements within the building, capturing light and framing views that were kept in mind as a part of design strategy. These are the calculations showing the area covered by the three layers of the project: the central block, the wall cluster, and the edge. Calculations showing the services and tank size requirements for water supply and rainwater harvesting. The image on the bottom right also shows how loft tanks are provided in the washrooms for ease of water supply. Water supply and waste water drainage system laid out on site, showing water distribution lines from the UGTs to various wards and blocks as mentioned in the legend. This is the stormwater drainage and rainwater harvesting plan, showing how the on-ground drainage is managed by bioswales laid out along the internal roads, the details of which is showed on the top right. The water collected on the roofs is collected for rainwater harvesting and utilized for landscape and flushing purposes. To conclude, through the design of this transit, the thesis attempts to look at the role of architecture in generating new perceptions and thus seeks to address what is the architecture and role of these institutions today. Thank you.